Hi, hello. I know that all of you are tired, so I promise that I will do it the most relaxed as possible. So today I would like to speak to you about the global validation from a MES process. Thank you. And how it was designed on the way that we could support the rollout process. Because as you know, we are struggling a lot with the resources on the sites. So as much simple as possible, it's better. I would like to introduce you why this topic is important, how we can deal with the differences between countries, and what actions can be taken. First of all, why we are considering that it is important. First of all, the compliance topic. We would like to facilitate the compliance in all the sites. It's quite challenging because we are talking about more or less more than 5 countries, and as you know, each country has their own regulation. The second is achieve the goals and the deadlines that we have as a company. It's always somehow complicated to have the budget and the time as should be to be sure that the project is running well. And the third part is release the people for the business core. How many resources we are taking from the sites to implement projects when the people need to be more focused on the business core. That's the main reason why we developed this strategy together with the process owner and the system owner on the way that we would like to facilitate to the sites the implementation of the MES to let them, the people, focus on the business core. How to deal with the difference between countries? I would like to start with bases. As you know, we have different regulations. The most famous one is FDA. All the people is talking about FDA, but we need to take in consideration many others when we are talking about the release of the system in different countries. For example, COFEPRIS on Mexico, or you have INVIMA and Visa on the Chinese one, the TGA. We need to take in consideration all these regulations, and normally what the companies are working on, we have the global SOPs that are taking the most common topics on that, on the way that it could help us to do the validation on the global level. Nevertheless, we know that in some cases we need to take in consideration some local requirements that we are not covering. The most simple but expensive one is the language, because in many cases, some documents need to be written in the local language. So even for that, we did a mapping on the way that we try to support the sites, which system or which documents in a real way needs to be translated in the local language, because some others maybe are not needed and just with English is enough. The other topic to consider is it's not only where we are producing the product, we need to take in consideration to where the site is located, because where the site is located, we need to consider this regulation. Additional, we need to consider the countries for where the product will be sold. So this is another topic that we need to consider. And the distribution practices, it's another topic that we need to consider. So it's not only how we will, or for which product we will develop the system, we need to take in consideration all these other topics. And something that is really important for MES, I guess that for QMS systems is not so huge difference, but for MES it is the technology that you have in the different sites. It's not the same if we are talking about producing tablets or gels or effervescent. Even it is not the same if we have a carton for the secondary packaging machine, for the secondary packaging, or if we are talking about blister. So normally for MES, all these elements are having a real impact in our process because it's something that we need to think to implement it. So this is part of the technical requirements that we should have on mind when we are developing the global validation topic. So in general, what we need to consider, we would like to have a core MES that it is validated and it is including the GXP requirements plus the general or the standard functionalities that the solution has. And additional, as part of the design of the strategy, we were considering how we will do the rollout, and we know that the rollout will have add-ons from the country that are particularity for the technical topics and for the validation perspective. So we know that we will be covering many of the topics with the core MES, but at the same time, we need to develop a strategy for the rollout on the way to do it more simple for the sites. Otherwise, we will kill the sites struggling with a lot of effort. What we did, we start to map the system implementation process to design the go live and the rollout. What we did with this process, normally in any project, we are so focused on the go live that we are letting aside the rollout process, what it represents a lot of effort too. That's the reason why we decide to do the mapping, even for the rollout on the sites. And once we have the rollout, the process map, we identify the deliverables and the actions that can be taken globally. So just to give you an example, one of the decisions taken is that the URS will be done globally. What we will do, or what we are doing, is we are updating the global URS with the add-ons that we are having from the sites. This is the way that we could release the site to don't be focused on a URS that could be done by the global team. And what is the benefit for that? Is that if we have a new add-on on one side, if we are covering globally, it could be used in the next site that would like to have the functionality without extra validation effort. That's why we are taking this decision. Additional, we are identifying which deliverables they have in common and which content of these deliverables are the same for all the sites. Because in so many cases, we are talking about now the site should have the local validation plan, the site should have the local validation report. But if we see the content of these documents, it's almost all the same for all the sites. And it is a lot of effort that the sites are doing to describe exactly the same topic. So it's too much time consuming. And additional, we identified will be the key documents to document the strategy to do the rollout easy and simple. And for us, the key was the risk assessment. And we would like to take the advantage of the risk assessment, not only to identify the risk that we have from the site, but even to identify how we don't have a risk if we are absorbing a lot of validation effort globally, instead to let it go to the sites. Which was the conclusion for that? The conclusion is that 80% of the content of the documents that could be done by the site, the content is the same. How many times we are reading system description, validation framework, and it is exactly the same in all the sites. If you have a global system that will be rolled out in more than 10 sites, the 10 sites are describing exactly the same process in almost all the documents. So the conclusion is 80% of the content is the same, and 65% of the test cases could be absorbed globally. But the key point is not only identify it, it's how it will be documented to give the sites all the protection and all the traceability on the way that they feel comfortable to don't repeat these test cases. So based on that, we create this model. We have the validation of the core. And additional, we are having, as I said, for some sites, we are having some add-ons that we are absorbing in the test case globally. And the only test cases that they need to do on site is the IQ, obviously, because they need to have installation. And the test cases that the main focus will be the local interfaces, because in some sites, they have some local SCADA systems that will be exchange data with the MES, or the local connectivity with the equipment, because as you know, that kind of software has a lot of connectivity with equipment on the site. This is the main focus for the local activities. All the other activities will be conducted by the global team on the way that what has been defined as an add-on for the first site, it will be a common solution for the second site, and it will work. It will work on the same way for the next sites. This is the model that has been created, and which was the key to provide the sites the full support to do it with a confidence. First of all, the validation documents. We did a map on the validation master plan, which documents will be covered by us and why, as is, for example, the URS, the functional spec, manual, system test cases. And what it is important to mention for this step, the key part for this is the collaboration with the system supplier and the collaboration with the system owner and the process owner. Why? Because to have all the URS and the functional specs updated according with the add-ons on the site, we are having work streams with the site that in all the time the supplier is with us, as well as the system owner, and we are discussing with the supplier if this add-on is in a real way add-on, or it is already part of the standard functionalities, or if it will be only a configuration, or if they need to customize something on the solution. So all these topics, we are discussing it together on the way that it is transparent for all, local, global, and the supplier, or which will be the next steps. And the supplier will prepare the technical documentation for us. On the risk assessment, we are documented, as I said, not only the risk of the system, but we are documented as well as what we need to be done globally and locally. And we are doing some pre-filled documents. As I said, for example, the local validation plan and the local validation report is almost all the same for all the sites. So what we did is we prepared some pre-filled documents that we are giving to the sites as part of the kickoff. And they have just small yellow sections that they need to focus on, as for example, the ID of the local SOP, the name of the local process manager, but all the other sections like the system description, file validation framework, configuration, etc., it's already there on these documents. So they don't need to work on it. It is more focused on the local topics. And finally, we have the system test cases. As I said, we absorb as a global team almost all the test cases. Just the related with interfaces and the related with connectivity is the one that the sites need to be focused on. But how we could document it on the way that it could be helpful for the site? Because when we are approaching the sites with this strategy, the first question is, how can I explain it to an inspector? Because the inspector will ask for it. So the way that we find to document it was on the risk assessment. As I said, on the risk assessment, we documented not only the risk that we have from the system, but we start to use a color code. We give them the risk assessment with a color code where they have identified which actions has been taken by the global team that no follow for them, nothing local is needed, which actions needs to be addressed by them, as I said, local interfaces, connectivity, etc., and which actions maybe needs to be evaluated by the local QA. As I mentioned before, maybe the translation of some documents, but it is something that they need to be evaluated. So it is easy for them once receive this risk assessment because they don't need to do the assessment side by side. It's already done by the global team with a specific color code about the topics that they need to focus on. For the others, they don't need to worry about. Obviously, we need to have a work stream or a kickoff to explain them which is the strategy, to explain them what they will find as part of the risk assessment. And that's the reason why we develop like this mapping for the rollout. The first topic is the kickoff. And the kickoff, we are explaining them the validation framework, how we will manage the possible local requirements, how we will deliver to them the global templates already pre-filled to support them during the whole process. The second step is the site will inform the global team the local technical and validation requirements that will be discussed on the different meetings. It's important to mention that we are having weekly or bi-weekly meetings with the sites and with the suppliers to do the follow. The other part is, as I said, we have the technical requirements that has been discussed with the supplier and with the system owner to discuss if they are really add-ons or are already on the system. And obviously, the validation requirements are discussed with QA. And finally, the Delta requirements that will be validated globally and absorbed globally to be ready to be used for the next site. So this is like the mapping that we are doing to discuss the local requirements to be sure that they are not doing more effort than it is needed. Someone asked me in the previous session how we are dealing with the signatures, because the sites would like to have a lot of signatures. And to be honest, it's something that we are still struggling with. From global perspective, we don't need more than 3 signatures in the worst case. Process owner, system owner, and QA. Still is something that we are struggling with the sites to try to reduce, because I don't know why, but the sites would like to have between 6 and 7 signatures. Funny fact, but it's something that we are still struggling with. But it is part of the discussions. I know that it sounds simple, but signatures means timing. And in some cases, the timing is that what we need to reduce. So this is the mapping that we are having. As I said, we are giving them to them all the support with the material that has been released for them on the global level. So as a common topic, what we did is we standardized the process to implement and release the system and how the rollout will be done and involved with us. As I said, please don't forget to have the close collaboration with the supplier. It is make the life more easy. Prepare the pre-filled formats. I know that it is a lot of effort for the global team, because believe me, even the start to having updating it is somehow an effort, but it is better to have the effort once instead to 10 times, because if you have the rollout for more than 5, 10 sites, you will duplicate the time consuming. And we were doing a specific kickoff with the site to explain them the ways of work that we will have for the rollout of the system, because something that we are seeing is that the knowledge that we could have between site to site is different. Not in all the sites you could have an SME for an MES system, neither for the QA oversight of the MES system. So that's why we would like to, or we are running the kickoff, because it helps us to see the maturity that we have on the site and give us an idea how close we need to be working with the site. You could be surprised that some sites are really experts on the topic, but for another sites, it is a challenge for them to make the change between the paper and that kind of software. That's the reason why for us it's important to be always working close with them. And finally, as a takeaways, for us it is important to think beyond the go live. Always for IT projects, we are seeing focus on the go live, when is the due date for the go live. But we would like to think beyond that, and we are thinking on the rollout process. As I said, we are seeing some wins there and savings there. So that's why we are considering like a takeaway. Don't make assumptions, because in some cases we are assuming or that we are expert of they already know, on that they know how to do it. So don't make the assumptions. That's the reason why we are having the big weekly meetings with them, to always try to break this topic. Support the site during the whole process. What we are seeing is more close you are working with the site, more open they will be to take the global framework with them. If only go approach them to say, this is the BMP, follow it, we will lose them. We need to work closely with them. And we need to have a close collaboration with the system supplier. Believe me, for us, the key of the program is the system supplier. I can tell you that we are happy with the support that we are receiving from them, not only from the technical part, but even for the validation piece. The support that they are giving us is really good one. And obviously, we are always having the system owner and the process owner with us, because at the end, who will support the system for the operational and maintenance phase is the system owner. So he needs to be always involved on the decisions that we will be taken. And obviously, the global QA, because it will be the one trying to negotiate with the sites how the process will be reduced. This is the key part. Define a common goal for all, because in some cases for that kind of project, or the IT has one goal, or the system owner has a different goal, the site has a different goal. It's always important for us to have the same goal for all of us, and increase the culture that the rollout is important. As I said, I think that one of the learnings that we are having is that don't focus only on the go live, focus on the rollout, because it is really important for the success of the project. And basically, what we are considering is like one team spirit, the best the one to support the site. At the end, has no sense to be there to implement a global system if we will not be supporting the sites. So practically, this is part of the presentation. As I promised, it was short and fresh. I hope that, I don't know if you have some doubts or comments.